Good evening. I'm David McFarland, Executive Director of the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home. We appreciate your support as well as the support of all those in the past 50 years, which would include individuals, corporations, foundations, and other agencies. 50 years is a long time, and we're proud to still be here. Tonight, in addition to celebrating our 50th, we are also paying tribute to Lewis L. Smith. Lou Smith was the director of the Fellowship Home for over 50 years, 25 years, excuse me. During that time, he was an icon in the community. He was the heart and soul of this place. And we owe an awful lot to Lou. And I've asked one of our board members, Rich Bischoff, to share his experience, some of his experiences with Lou.
I first met Lou through my first sponsor, Irv Arnold. Irv felt that Lou would be able to pass on some knowledge about the program and the 12 steps and just some basic wisdom about what it takes to be a man. And boy, was Irv right. That was in the spring of 1985, and I was only a few months sober. I wasn't a resident of the house, but that's only because my new job serving my apprenticeship in the funeral business provided me a room over the funeral home. But Lou would invite me for dinners because he knew that I needed a place to call home and some good meals and some meetings. Lou was always neatly dressed with his white hair and his goatee. I know when I would walk in his office, he would stand up and come around the edge of his desk and extend his hand, and he'd ask me how I was. And honestly, he really wanted to know how I was. Lou would teach me lessons by sharing his stories about what he had gone through and how he applied the 12 steps to his life. Most of the time I got what lesson he was trying to convey, but later on I realized that Lou was sharing his story just as Bill Wilson had shared his story in the first chapter of the Big Book. I took my 5th step with Lou. He put me at ease immediately and taught me how to do a 5th step and to take a 5th step. After my 5th step, I felt just the weight of the world off of my shoulders. And over the next several years, I took many 5th steps with guys from the house right there in his office. Some of the Louisms that I like to quote in meetings, and I always give credit to Lou, is like if you are in a discussion meeting and you talk more than a minute and a half, you're repeating yourself, you're talking off the subject, or you have no idea what you're talking about. But you need to listen to learn. Lou always emphasized sticking with the winners, and he would caution me and say, the number on your chip doesn't make you a winner. It's how you apply the steps to each and every day of your life and how you grow. That's what makes you a winner. One that I like and that I pass on very freely is Lou was very strong in believing that a meeting that began with a prayer and ended with a prayer had no room for profanity in the middle. I had the opportunity to go on several 12-step calls with Lou. He was short and to the point. He shared, and if the person was willing to go to a meeting and wanted what he had, he was all in and he would help them in any way. But if not, Lou would just simply say that they're wasting good drinking time. I know Lou ran the fellowship home with love, tough love, and a real desire to see those men and women find a new way of living. He was always very pleasant. He was very genuine. But Lou had a stubborn and stern streak when he knew that he was right. And I think deep down inside it was just due to a real passion for the 12 steps and the principles upon which they were founded. As the years went by, I would stop by and see Lou, and he never seemed to tire of my stories about my family and pictures of my kids. But he never did forget to remind me that I needed to remember where my priorities lie in order to keep what I had. I know one time that Lou came to the funeral home on a visitation, and I mentioned that I liked the lapel pin that he had, the familiar circle with the triangle. Without saying a word, Lou took it off and pinned it on my jacket, to my protest that I didn't expect that. He said, it's not for you to say, it's a gift. I treasure that, and I know one of these days I'll know the right person to give that to and give it away. Lou gave me the honor of taking care of his funeral arrangements. I met with him and Candy at the house. He wanted things simple, but he wanted to talk about a life that he lived, a life that he tried to live, and that was making an impact on other people and living that theory of to thine own self be true. I think any one of us that knows Lou knows that he's far surpassed that mark. In all honesty, it would really be difficult for me to think of a person that made a bigger impact on my life. I guess just to sum it up, I can say I was very blessed that Lou Smith was my friend.
Thanks, Rich. Lou was one of a kind. In 2015, Ken Stewart was the home's director, who skillfully led the home through its move from 1107 Virginia Street to our current location. Both properties are owned by the First Presbyterian Church, and we are grateful to be a mission of the church. Ken retired at the end of 2009, and since then, the home has continued the tradition of improving our programs to the benefit of both the residents and the community. We remain frugal. We have a staff of 2. Jay Webb is our assistant director and probably the best house manager I know of. In addition to Jay, there's myself, and we have 1 volunteer who works in the office on weekends and also cooks a Sunday potluck dinner for the guys. In 2010, our board adopted 2 visions. One was to add 3 bedrooms to our facility here and also a rear safety staircase and corridor. Additionally, the other vision was to see a treatment center built in the area here. The bedrooms in the second floor construction were completed in 2011, and in the case of the treatment center, it is close to becoming a reality, and we support it wholeheartedly. We were able to add educational scholarships to our program. These scholarships match funds from the residents, and they work towards either college or trade school or even a GED. 2 years ago, we had 3 college graduates and 1 gentleman who received a master's degree. And all of those people either started or worked on their program while they were here. Additionally, we really have a variance of people that come in. Educationally wise, we've had people without a GED all the way up to 1 guy working on a doctorate. After the educational funding, we were able to add a wellness program, and that program works through Health Right of West Virginia. Everybody who enters the home receives a physical and many other things along with a medical card or medical insurance, so they have that part of their life covered. After the wellness program came aftercare, and initially that was a program where we helped with the move out of here for those who have completed their program. Currently, we fund, actually last year we bought an apartment building and rehabbed it. We have 9 apartments that are dedicated to aftercare of the men of those that graduate. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our program here at the Home for the Men. We believe in building life skills and positive habits through education and structured accountability. The men, when they come here, are not required to pay any fees initially, and there's no fees for the first 2 weeks they're here. Thereafter, they are expected to work and pay a nominal rent and our fee structure. All their food and naturally their room and board is included. We have 15 single bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms in this facility, and we have 9 apartments in our apartment building. The men attend 5 NA or AA meetings a week outside, and 7 actually the first month they're here. After that, in addition, they attend 1 group therapy meeting a week held by an outside certified licensed addiction counselor, and attend individuals meetings with him as we see fit. Also weekly there's a house meeting, which on alternate weeks includes a living skills session. And then on Thursday there's a recovery dynamics meeting, and we are licensed to deliver that program. It's a textbook program. The men are also tested randomly every week, and we are zero tolerance. One of the joys of this job and this position is to see men who are successful and go on in life. I've asked 2 of our men who have graduated from the program recently to tell you a little bit about what their life was like prior to coming here, what it was like in the home, and what's happening now in their lives. The first of the men I'd like you to meet is Travis. Travis came to us recently, and I'm going to let him tell you his story.
I'm Travis. I'm an alcoholic, and this is my story. I came into recovery lost, hopeless, and broken with a backpack full of clothes and a worn out from my arrest. And it's not like that today. I grew up with a pretty hectic childhood. From a young age, I remember my first memory being I was probably 2 or 3 years old. I was sitting in a car seat, and my mom had taken us drunk to the courthouse, and she had lost the rights to her children, and there were cops surrounding the vehicle, and my older siblings were locking the doors, and I just remember being really fearful, and I never really got rid of any of that fear. We moved around a lot. We were constantly running from the law and SRS, and it seemed like we would settle down for a little bit, and everything would be okay, until it wasn't. And then we were on the road again, and you know, just fear of the unknown from a really young age. And I remember being 7 years old, and my dad said we were going camping, and we went out in the middle of the woods for about 3 months, and lived off ramen noodles and raviolis, and we had our dog with us. She had a litter of puppies, and I was having a blast. I thought we were just camping out with the dog, and I just played with puppies and fished, and messed around with campfires for about 3 months. And it wasn't until I was about 15 years old that my dad had told me what we were really doing. My mom had called the SRS, and we were hiding out so I didn't get put in a foster home. When I was about 12 years old, we ran from the cops once again, and we went to Vegas, and we told everybody we were in Florida, and stayed there for about 2.5 years until the heat was off of us, and then we came back home, and that's just how my life was. And my dad went working on the road when I was about 13, and I started sleeping on my buddies' couches, and just kind of winging it from there. I didn't have any supervision or anybody to tell me what to do or what not to do, and I decided I was going to do whatever I wanted to do. And I believe that's when self-will run riot really started to ensue. I started smoking weed and drinking, and I quickly found out that I liked drinking a lot more than I liked smoking weed, because it didn't give me anxiety attacks, and it didn't make me I don't know, I just drugs and alcohol just always made me feel okay, and I knew that right from the get-go. I wanted to have a mood or a mind-altering substance. I just wanted to feel different, to feel excited, to feel happy, to feel content, comfortable, and I knew how to do that now. I had found the solution, and I continued to do that. By the time I was about 16 years old, I became a daily drinker. That was during school, after school. Somehow I managed to graduate high school by the skin of my teeth, and I continued that same lifestyle. You know, basically just couch surfing and partying, and that's what I was good at. That's what I came to know as fun, and I was perfect. You know, when I was 19, I found myself in a really deep, dark spot. I had gotten into methamphetamine and whatever other, you know, substance I could get into, and I was sleeping on a park bench in my hometown where I knew everybody and nobody wanted anything to do with me, and you know, I wasn't allowed to go home. I had taken advantage of them too much, and I called my dad, and he was working on the road, and he took me in and, you know, bought me a motel and let me stay with him for about 3 months. And I had about 3 months later, I was thinking about killing myself and killing other people, and some of my best friends today are people who I was contemplating on taking their life, and was seriously thinking about. I don't think I would have killed myself, but I know I would have killed somebody else if I would have kept going down that road. I was a really hateful and locked up person inside, and I was had even more fear as an adult, and but I had a lot of pride and ego to go with that, and it was just a dark place to be in. My dad is actually the one that said, you know, don't ever be afraid to ask God for help, and so that's what I did. You know, I had a moment of clarity where I knew that I was not good at living life and I needed some help, and you know, I mentioned pride and ego. I had too much ego to ask any human for help, but I knew that if I was by myself in a room, then nobody could hear me asking God for help. And that was one of the most important times of my life. I prayed the same prayer for 2 weeks. You know, God, can you please just help me be a better person? And August 31st of 2011 was the day that God had showed me that it was okay. That I don't know what it was. I just woke up different. It wasn't some big, huge voice talking to me and telling me that it was God and that everything was going to be wonderful. From then on, it was just a different feeling. I no longer had those hateful thoughts about other people and about myself. You know, I knew that I wanted to quit drinking, but I didn't know how. And the only two thoughts that I had in my head for those 12 hours are go get some beer, don't go get beer. And that's a pretty harsh argument inside of yourself when you really don't want to do something, but you have no other choice but to go do it because you've never done anything else. And you know, fear was quickly setting in, but I managed to stay away from it long enough to where I had a mini stroke. I had alcohol withdrawal, and I was diagnosed with delirium tremens. I went to Women and Children's Hospital, and they had handed me a rehab packet and told me that I needed to get some help, and that was the first time that I had accepted help. And I went to detox. I really wanted a new way of life, so I just hung in there, and I talked to God a lot. And when I was about 3 months sober, I was working at Jimmy John's, and I had gotten a job there, and my head was starting to clear up a little bit, and I started to see some hope, and had started to really find new ways to be happy, even though it was like fleeting, you know, moments. I ended up somehow, some way, I got an opportunity to get into the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home, and I'm so grateful for that. The Fellowship Home offered me a safe place to work on myself. The most thanks that I could possibly come up with goes to that place. That's where I worked the steps. I learned to continue to implement the steps in my life. The promises came true whenever I was living in that house. I remember it was just really cool to have a close relationship with brothers that were in the house that were trying to achieve the same goal, which was to just find a new way of life. And not everybody makes it, but I really believe it's the willingness that it takes, because I don't really know how I made it, or I made it today anyway. I'm really thankful for the life that I have today. Today I'm free. I don't have to be afraid today. I was completely full of fear and consumed by guilt, shame, and remorse on a regular basis, and it's not like that today. Today I wake up and I hit my knees and I thank God for another day clean and sober. After I graduated from the Fellowship Home, I was blessed with the opportunity to be one of the first men to move into the Fellowship apartments, the aftercare apartments, and that has just been awesome. I'm still held accountable. I still have to be able to pass a urine screen, which I'm so grateful for. I would take a urine screen every day of my life for the rest of my life, because I absolutely love being clean and sober. And life's good today. I would have never been able to think my way to where I am now.
Thanks, Travis. Great story. We're now going to hear from Dennis Mosley. Dennis was a product of the home several years before Travis. He is one of the ones who's graduated from college since he was here. Additionally, you're going to meet his family, and you'll hear his story, and I think you'll enjoy it as much as I do.
Hey everybody, my name is Dennis Mosley, and I'm a grateful alumni of the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home. I started drinking alcoholically when I was 18 years old. Got heavily into drugs and alcohol then. It was my first semester of college. I just went to the local community college because I was afraid to move away. I could have got a scholarship pretty much anywhere on my academics, but I got one at Surrey Community and decided to stay home and go there so I could be around my family. The first semester there, I got into doing everything that I said that I would never do. And my journey downward happened pretty quick. By the time I was 22, it had gotten so bad that I asked for help for the first time. I was young then, and I didn't think that I had a problem, where I was complacent and I thought I could fix it myself. It's the way that I was raised, is that as a man, I don't ask for help. I should be able to get through anything myself. I was running around with motorcycle gangs by the time I was 22. I went from being the guy that was most dependable, graduating from high school at the top of my class, to a guy that was hanging out with in awful bars around, again, riding a motorcycle and doing things that I would have never imagined myself doing. Of course, again, I was complacent. I didn't think I had a problem, so I continued on. And for the next 11 years, it just continued to get worse and worse. The progression of the disease, or the malady of alcoholism and drug addiction, it played a toll on my life in every regard. I lost who I was. I lost my way, and I didn't know what I was living for anymore. I was living just to stay high, and I did that for 16 years total by the time it was all said and done. By the time I turned I turned 25 and decided I was going to get married, that my wife was going to be the one to fix me. And that didn't work out too well. 5 years later, of course, I got a divorce. But I had a little girl in that relationship. And the one thing that I always wanted to be in my life was a good father. And I wasn't able to do that anymore. I wasn't around her at all. My parents helped raise her. Her mother, of course, raised her. And I wasn't really, I was in the picture, but I wasn't a major part of her life. I was just kind of around every once in a while. So fast forward that to my early 30s, and it just, I couldn't work anymore. I'd lost everything in my life that I cherished. I was unemployable. I was a mess, and I didn't see any kind of way out. The pervasive thought in my mind at that time was that if I just wasn't here anymore, that my mom wouldn't have to worry about me anymore because she would know where I was at. My daughter wouldn't have to have the shame of me being her father because I wouldn't be here anymore, and that I wouldn't have to put up with my life because, of course, it would be over. And life at that time had gotten hard. I lived at the bottom for several years of my life. But eventually I'd had enough. It was getting close to the end of my run. Had a lot of different things going on. Pretty sure I was under investigation, and it scared me, the thought of having to go away to jail or prison, and a lot of the other consequences that I was having to face at the time. So I asked for help, and I went to a place, again, in the local treatment center back home. Stayed there for 28 days, and that's where I started to learn the truth about who I was and what my problem was. And that treatment center had knowledge of the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home, and I remember my counselor at the time was a guy named Ben. He called me in his office. I'd been there about 2 weeks, and he said, "Are you willing to go to any length?" And I really didn't know what he was talking about, but I agreed to it. And he's like, "Well," he said, "I'd like for you to move to the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home up in Charleston, West Virginia." I was like, "Man, that's crazy." I'd be moving to West Virginia. But anyway, I agreed to it, and I filled out the application. And it went into review, and I was accepted to move up there, so I did that. And man, that's when things really started getting a lot better. I moved in July of 2010. Have a sobriety date of July 9th, 2010. And from there, that's where life really took over. I had so some of the requirements there at the house were that I go to 12-step meetings, go to an outside counselor that the house provided, and that I make my bed every morning, and I follow the rules, and I do what I'm supposed to do to be able to recreate my life. And I'm proud to say that we were able to do that. And I was that guy. I was that guy that needed help, and it was really hard for me to accept that. But once I accepted it, and I did move into the fellowship home, I started learning how to live again. It says in one of our books that we'll be able to recreate our lives. And the fellowship home gave me a safe place in which to do that. I had a place that I would have a home-cooked meal 4 days a week. I learned to socialize through sitting down at the dinner table with other men. It was pretty interesting, but nonetheless, I learned how to follow rules, and I learned how to be a human being again, which is something I had completely lost. I had a guy that the staff there, one of the requirements was that I get a job working 35 hours a week. I hadn't had a job for years. I didn't even know how to get up to go to work. I was really a lost soul. So I learned how to get all these life skills again, and to move forward in my life. So I was there about 6 months, and I'd worked through the 12 steps, and I was looking forward. I had a vision for what I wanted my life to be, and I started looking forward at what I needed to do with my life. So I had a high school diploma, but I didn't have any college. I had some college, but no degree. And I approached the staff there at the fellowship home and asked them if they'd be willing to allow me to go back to college, and they helped me fulfill my dream of going back When I was able to do that, I still had to make 5 meetings a week. I still had to follow the rules, of course, in the house. But they allowed me to go back to college, and I'm proud to say that because of that support, I was able to graduate cum laude from Bridge Valley. Then looking forward from there, since I've come to the fellowship home, I was able to go to West Virginia State and finish my bachelor's degree and graduated with a 3.89 from there as well. And today, what it's like, as I sit here and I really look at everything that I've been given since I've been given there, since I went to the fellowship home, graduated, and I stay involved. I have a beautiful wife. I have 2 loving children that I am a father to. I have a wife that I'm a husband to. And my parents were able to get their son back. And that's awesome. As many of you know, or some of you know, my mother passed away March of this year. And she loved the Kanawha Valley Fellowship Home more than probably anything, because for the last 6.5 years or so, before she passed, she got to be a mother again. She got to have her little boy back, and we got to have a good relationship. I was able to be there for her. I was able to be there for her as, going into the hospital, which was completely unexpected. We weren't expecting her not to come out. But when I look at the whole situation as it was, I couldn't have asked for it to be any better. Because again, for 6.5 years, she got to see her little boy recover. My father has got to be a father to his wayward son. And I've gotten my life back. I could just go on and on about the gifts that I've been given. One of the other things that I've been able to do is I enrolled for a graduate degree at the University of Charleston. And I'm proud to say that I'm working on getting my graduate degree in strategic leadership with a specialization in business management. I have a really awesome job today. I have a lot of awesome friends in my life. It's an absolute honor to be part of the fellowship home. It's a privilege to say that I have stayed there, that you have helped me, and I am very grateful for everything that you are doing and continue to do in my life as well as other men's lives.
I really want to thank you all again for being here and listening to our story. And I'd like to turn the program back to Chip, and he'll take it from here. But thank you again for everything.